whenever you change out the forced induction unit. But anyways, so our plan is to release these calibrations this year. Um, our goal is to release stage one in the next few months and continue to go from there. So we have big plans. B9 S4 will be the new B8 S4. Some of the early stuff we're seeing on the B9 S4 is very promising. Very mildly tuned cars are running as fast of trap speeds as some of the fastest B8 S4s.
Yeah.
So it appears to be a very potent motor and potent package. The stock turbo is small. It's about a KO4 sized. And it's going to be capable of 420 horsepower crank around there. The motor will produce good torque because it has 3 liters. But to really go quick in those cars, you're going to need a turbo upgrade. The B8 was nice because we were able to keep stretching that supercharger out for 10 years.
Yep.
And pushing harder and harder. But turbos, they're really easy to max out.
It's a lot easier.
Pretty quick.
But it's also thankfully a lot easier to swap them out too. It's not nearly as large of an assembly to deal with as the supercharger and the turbo manifold.
This will be easy. Turbos right on top, very accessible, much easier than a 2.7. So things are looking good, and we are very excited for the next few years to really get B9 off the ground. Where is the B8.5 S4 intake temp reading coming from on the car when data logging? Is the sensor in the main intake just at? Well, they're asking where it is.
Yeah, it is. There's a number of sensors on the car. There's the one we log and the one we care about is after it's after everything. It's literally right before the air is entering the port for the head. So it's after your intercooler breaks, after the supercharger. Yeah. It's the air temperature that's getting into the cylinder. That's really what you need to know. Right. However, we also log ambient the air coming into the supercharger, so we kind of know how cold the ambient temperatures are. So we log both, but the one we really pay attention to the most is the one going into the cylinders. So,
and then they're asking about coolant temps. I see there are 2 readings on VAGCOM. Is this pre and post heat exchanger readings?
Likely, I'd have to look and see which ones they're referring to. Yeah, usually there's a radiator outlet temperature and then a cylinder head coolant temperature.
Mm-hmm. Any possible solutions to upgrade supercharger intercoolers on the 3.0? Yes, this is a hot topic right now. We are evaluating options and solutions. There are some options on the market that we are going to test. There's really not too much to say. Unfortunately, generally speaking, intercooler efficiency upgrades are much harder to come by than size upgrades. And that's why whenever you see an air-to-air intercooler upgrade out in the world, it's always 1.5, 2, 3 times bigger than the stock unit. When you're talking about a captured air-to-water unit, if you can't make it bigger, there's not a lot of cooling improvement or increase in capacity you're going to be able to do. And it's not like the Audi intercooler is not already a very high quality unit. Now, if it was like some eBay China intercooler thing with extruded intercooler fins,
nothing in the middle,
with a 30 or 40% efficiency, and if you could replace that with something that's 80% efficiency, but that's not the case here. So we're looking into options. We don't have any good answers, but I would say keep your eyes peeled. Also be skeptical of some of the things you see out there. And I think we talk about this, if someone's selling a performance product and they say that it's going to do X and Y, then they need to be able to provide some data, something. Even a lot of times when people do, it's not very reliable or valid data, but at least do that. And that's something you'll always see us strive to do, to always prove that out and show the customers that there is an improvement. Because if there's an improvement, you should be able to measure it. There's no excuse. Someone's asking, what's the best way to get teenage kids to learn to drive? Well, I hope they're asking learn how to drive safely or actually learn how to control a car.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Let's assume this is past the
yeah,
driver's ed kind of level.
yeah, because you can get in the car with your kid and drive around, and if they pass the driver's test, they can drive. That's how it works. But that doesn't mean they know how to drive. Certainly doesn't mean they know how to control a car.
Right.
And something that I always talk about is, um, you know, in the U.S. Anyways, I won't talk about other countries because I'm not exactly sure, but nobody really knows how to control a car when it's out of control, or what to do with a car when it's out of control. And that's often the most dangerous time to be behind the wheel of a car, is when it's lost control in some way. Um, the DMV doesn't test for that. There's no you don't go out onto a skid pad and show that you can turn into a slide, or that you can engage ABS, or any of those things. So for me, I strongly recommend track days. Here in the Bay Area, our local Golden Gate Audi Club does team driver safety clinics, and these are all day events. They're pretty cheap. I think they're like $100 for the day, and usually they have sponsors that pay for it. But they go out with your teenager, and you do all those kind of tests and examples behind the wheel of the car that they drive, so that they get a sense of what to do when the car is out of control. And I would strongly recommend looking into anything like that you can do. Um, what is there age limits on track days? I think
There is,
as
yeah,
long as you're
yeah,
16.
16, and then
So I would get my kid out on
there's
track.
also like, I don't know if you, I was reading some other stuff. You spoke to the winter driving school events.
Oh yeah, and
Those are
if
really,
there's snow and
if you
stuff.
have
Yeah.
access to a winter school event,
Yeah.
that is a really good way to have someone feel what the limits of a car are
Yeah.
with very low lets. So you can feel what a slide feels like at 10, 15, 20 miles
Yeah.
an hour with very little, consequence should they get it wrong, and they will get it wrong. I mean, everybody does for a
No,
while.
nobody knows how to do
Uh,
this naturally.
you
I mean,
need to
maybe a few
you need
people.
to feel what's going on and how what it feels like, what countersteer means, what these control
Yeah.
methods are that you've got available to you that most people don't ever experience or learn.
Yeah. The teen driver clinics here, we rent a water truck, and we do it in a parking lot where everything gets sprayed down, trying to help reduce the amount of grip. But I would get my kid out on track at minimum.
Yep.
Um, I think it actually will have the opposite effect. I think a lot of people think, well, if I let my kid go out on track, they're going to turn into a speed junkie. But I think it would be like, learning how to use a gun responsibly at a shooting range. Um, you know, Going through the process, um, learning uh, how to responsibly use a car, learning how to control a car when it's at the limit or when it's out of control. These are very valuable things. So you just can't do that on the streets. There's really no good way to get a car out of control or at the limit of traction on the street. It's very tough to do. You would certainly be breaking laws, and then God forbid, you know, you hit someone head on going through a corner, cutting lanes
Well,
and
it's
stuff. So
yeah, and there's so many of the exercises too are very real world relatable, where it'll be like a rapid lane change movement,
yeah,
where you're really you've got someone that just merges into you or something, which we've all had on the highway,
yeah,
and then how can you catch that, react to it, and know what the vehicle's going to do when you dramatically change your direction of travel at high
exactly.
speed. So
And,
it's not like these are like high speed, high cornering, like learning to slide a car around. It's real world, very applicable
yeah,
procedures and techniques.
yeah, it's not stunt driving
No,
school. It's very much learning to control the car in the real world. So I highly recommend that. I actually have a son who's 13, so it's something I've been stressing about and thinking
how is he
about.
13
I
already?
don't know, man. And apparently he'll be 14 this
Oh
year.
my god.
So I don't know, but it is scary. I mean, I think driving is really the most dangerous thing that anyone does in modern day society, and yeah, we have so little training around it. So hopefully that was helpful. Any updates to ZF8 tuning on B8 Q5 SQ5? Can we get more aggressive one, higher RPM shift, and higher launch?
Yeah, I mean, as we've spoken to before, it's all being worked on. We're we're trying to get that stuff wrapped up as quickly as we can. I don't have a hard ETA.
Yeah, we're working on it, and improvements and updates are being made to it. But stay tuned. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, it's all going to be part of. We've got a lot of work we're doing right now with the B8, A4 as well, with the ZF8 in it. So we're kind of trying to wrap all that up, all that similar development up together. So that's going to come along with that.
Yeah. Any updates on B9 RS5 product line? Primarily the airbox, intercoolers, and tune. So the airbox, I believe the engineering is done on that.
Yep.
And so we will be releasing that at some point. Intercoolers, we offer the Wagner intercooler. Oh no, that's a whole different setup.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we did talk about this in our last engineering meeting, and we are evaluating upgrade solutions. These cars that have air to water they pose an additional challenge, and I'm not sure exactly why. I'd like to ask Audi why they felt the need to do that. I mean, I could guess.
We can guess. It's seems like a packaging or
the car doesn't make that much power, but anyways, these air to water systems max out much easier, and they're a lot harder to increase their capacity, like I was just talking about. Yeah. So, what was the other thing? Intercooler, intake, and I don't know.
Intercoolers and tune. Airbox
tuning, we are working on that. It's sort of on the heels of the B9 S4 tune, but there's a lot that we're doing concurrently between the two. But we won't release the B9 RS5 tune until we release the S4 tune. Thoughts on high performance aftermarket coil packs? Is it BS? Man, these you guys are
catching on.
You guys are picking it up. We're here to like out the BS, right? So I think the aftermarket coil packs that I've seen do something really well is they're different colors, and the ones that are red are actually red. I think there's blue ones, black. Is there green?
It might be yellow.
Huh? Blue
and red for sure.
No, there's not yellow. I don't think.
Well, until you go to there's other brands that are yellow. But...
Yeah. So, listen, I think they're BS. There's nothing wrong with the stock coil packs. I think some of the companies that sell them claim that they have additional 5 or 10% output.
Now, I mean, if your coil packs are getting on years and you just need to replace them, that is a thing. You can have degraded performance from old packs or packs that are starting to crack and give up. There's no reason not to.
Yeah, we just had a coil go out on our GTI. Yeah, it's a stock GTI that we're using for carb testing, and I had the pleasure of driving
in the middle of driving it,
and it's the first. It's one of the first 034 Motorsport Company project cars that's ever broken down on me, and it was bone stock.
It was completely stock, yeah.
But I had to limp it in on limp mode because it was going crazy. But yeah, I mean, so we will likely come out with a product like this. We will show the millijoule output differences between the two coils. And they will, most importantly, be the colors that we want them to be, that hopefully you like.
Most important, yes.
But I think for anyone to come out and say that if you put these coils in your car is going to make more power is BS.
Unless you've got a fundamental problem and there's misfires and it's not running right, it's usually a very discernible level of performance you're giving up when something's wrong with a coil pack, because you're losing a cylinder or majority of that cylinder's combustion output.
Yeah, and this is kind of similar with spark plugs too. If the coil can release its energy, and if the spark plug can ionize that electricity in the pressure of the combustion chamber, then you will make combustion. And a hotter spark won't necessarily start combustion better than a normally good, sufficient spark. So could you release more energy? Yes. Should you? There's no reason to. And again, it doesn't hurt anything, but if whoever's selling these coils is really making some big performance claim, and you're expecting if it's a lot more power, it's not going to happen.
Broad, like you put these in, you're going to get 20 horsepower with no qualifications on it. That's almost never going to be the case. You've got a problem with your existing components.
And I mean, what we should do is we'll do before and after dynos, and maybe we'll just show that it's the same power,
Right.
but it's if at some point you reached some limit where your combustion pressure is too high
Right.
for the stock coil to support, there's just not enough
And that's
current to ionize that spark, then yes, that extra 5 or 10% would buy you a little bit more headroom. But in your average, GTI making 300 horsepower, 400 horsepower, the stock coils are having no issues with
Right.
that.
And that's just-
or your RS3 with 600 horsepower, the stock coils are having no issue with that. So, So I think whenever someone makes a claim, they should back it up with data. And if they can't do that, then it should be questioned.
Yeah.
But listen, if you want a blue coil, there's probably only one place to go. So I think we will be releasing yellow, black, and maybe red. So, but yellow is kind of our color. See the yellow mug, so yellow. B9 SQ5 developments. Yes, we have lots of new products coming out. We have a really gorgeous strut tie bar that I can't wait to see the prototype of. We've done all the engineering. We're getting our first billet samples. It would be all billet. It's really cool and badass. I think B9 SQ5 peeps will love that. We will be releasing soon some lowering links, which readjust the sensor on the air ride to lower the car, and we found a way to do those with premium quality and a very low price, and so we will be offering a market busting price on that, which we rarely do, but we like to pass on the savings when we can. What else we got coming up? If you guys are interested in our ZTF wheels for those, we're currently testing 21 by 10s on Nick's B9 SQ5, which look amazing.
I think they're 21.
We're looking into our ResX products. So if you guys have needs or requests for that platform, please shoot them in.
Yeah. Obviously, the more you guys hammer on us for specific stuff, the quicker it gets into the queue.
Yeah. So, but 2021 will bring a lot of exciting products for the B8 and B9 SQ5. We're starting to embrace that. We have rear sway bar coming out. We're starting to embrace that platform because we see that it's somewhat ignored, and frankly, it's awesome. Those cars really become transformed.
They do
with some of the mods that we're doing. So I think it's a good all around result. Let's see. Stage 2 DSG Mark 7 Golf R, downpipe, intake, inlet, intercooler, brake pads, rotors, springs, sway bar, and end links, dog bone mounts upgraded already. Okay.
This is Brad.
Oh, this is Brad?
Yes.
Any suggestions to look at before taking to the track? No. You have everything.
Component wise, nope. I think you're good. I would say obviously vehicle inspection and alignment prior to track.
But you don't need any more mods. Not to go to the track.
Good brake fluid. Make sure that's flushed and clean, and you've got a high temp fluid in there. I don't see that on here.
I would say the last mod is the driver mod, which is lacking. So
driver mod is always that's never done.
Yeah,
so
it's never done.
We're not
to criticize.
We're not criticizing.
Yeah.
It's never. No one's ever done.
It's never done. It's something you can constantly work on, and I would say do at least 5 track days before you feel the need to do anything else to the car, and then go from there.
One thing I did started investing in more recently too is not necessarily vehicle mods, but driver safety stuff. I wear a lot more gear than I used to. I have a family now. I have fire suit, gloves, shoes. Just it's another level of safety you can bring to the track, and there's no real downside to it. So
yeah, wear as much safety as you like, for sure. But not to say that driving at the track is any more dangerous than driving on the street. It really isn't.
Nope.
Are your American tunes different from rest of world tunes? If so, why? I mean, they philosophically aren't.
Our strategy and how we tune and how we apply these. No, they're essentially the same. Fortunately, a lot of the VAG motors are near identical these days,
Yeah,
between
it's gotten
for,
much better.
around the world for the tunes we offer. Now there are a lot of tunes in the rest of the world market we don't, or a lot of engines in the rest of the world market we don't have here, and we don't necessarily have calibrations for those. Um, there's a bunch of 1.4 liters and smaller motors that we just don't see over here. But generally speaking, the 2 liter stuff, MQB, the 3 liters are essentially the same. There's usually some differences with emissions controls and that kind of thing, but we don't touch those anyway. So it's not something performance wise we're too impacted by. So no, we're lucky. A lot of the tunes are 99% transferable between U.S. and rest of the world for what we need.
Yeah, I mean, basically the answer is no, unless there needs to be a
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, and it's gotten a lot better in the recent years. The older stuff
Yeah.
was more of a challenge with the Mark V, Mark VI, or like GTIs and 2 liters. There were some larger differences there, but since the MQB and since the B8 era um, S4 stuff, it's gotten a lot easier.
This is an interesting question. Is Fast Performance back? Can you Google them?
Fast, I think they actually the name stuck around.
Yeah.
I don't. It changed hands, I think.
So someone's asking, what are your thoughts on the Whipple Supercharger kit that Vast Performance are coming out with for the 3.0T?
I've seen some posts of this cropping up here on
Info on it?
it's gonna be on their site.
I haven't heard of it. I really thought Vast Performance went out of business like 8 years ago. I don't know much about them now, but
Direct Cover Live, just like 6 weeks old.
Yeah, no, I'd seen some rumorings of the supercharger thing. I just haven't seen it in a while.
yeah, I mean, I'd have to see the data. We'd have to see the data on it. I'd be suspicious because the stock Supercharger is very, very good and has proven that it's very good. So I think unless somebody starts running faster times
And the
with
big-
that
yeah,
than
and
than what we have, then
it
yeah, I
keeps
would be
coming back
skeptical.
to cost per horsepower, basically, on these things, and to
Yeah.
do a full supercharger and intake manifold setup gets really expensive pretty
Yeah,
quickly.
I mean, you're gonna spend $10,000+ for what? So we just don't know enough about it, but I would have healthy skepticism about it, regardless. So, and I certainly hope it's new ownership from the previous ones, but I don't know. Yeah, so maybe we'll comment on that more in the future once we know more. I don't want to speak, without having information. Let's see. When do you think you'll be caught up on shipping orders from the Black Friday sale? Good question. We're getting caught up every day. So every day, more and more Black Friday orders ship. These are delays, not from the result of our ability to ship. They're delays of supply. So I don't know if you guys have seen any of the pictures from the Long Beach port down in Southern California. There's currently a line of container ships going out into the ocean, miles and miles and miles of container ships. So COVID is wreaking havoc on a lot of the ports around the U.S. These ports are shutting down or not being able to operate at capacity because of the number of COVID cases. In Southern California right now is getting destroyed by COVID. It's the worst outbreak in the U.S. right now in that LA area. So that affects us, but COVID in general has created delays. So as material comes in, we process it, manufacture with it, and we ship those products out. I think a big one was the B8 X34 intakes. We've been shipping those as components come back in stock. I think we're probably a month out from being done with those as far as shipping everything and having them back in stock. There's one part right now that's slowing things down, and we've done an expedited manufacturing run of those parts, and I think it could be sooner, but I would say about a month. So if there's anything specific that you want to know about, shoot an email to contact@034 Motorsport, and we will get back to you with our best ETA. And be forewarned, the customer service team they give kind of worst case scenario estimates with the hopes that we will always beat them. Sometimes by a lot, sometimes they're too they set expectations too low.
Right.
But we had an issue last week with a customer who got really upset, and the customer, the reality was like half of what they had been told, but we're just trying not to overpromise and underdeliver at the same time. So, but I think we are mostly caught up with Black Friday.
Yeah, there's a couple.
The vast majority of orders have shipped.
Right. Big mover products that kind of caught, not necessarily caught us out. We just
the B8 intake for sure.
intake
I think was we sold 10 times more of those than we thought we would, and so we just got caught out by ridiculously high demand. But they were a great deal. I think they were like $250 during Black Friday. And I think worst case scenario, maybe some customers will wait 2 months. So it's still a great deal for an intake. We're sorry for the wait. That's never our intention. Thank you guys for your continued patience. In regards to your TCU tunes, are your shift patterns configured by RPM or trans output speed? If by output speed, is it set in miles per hour?
That is entirely dependent on what TCU we are tuning. And honestly, it can be, it really depends on the transmission that you're dealing with and what software you're dealing with. So like DQ250 stuff, the Temic stuff, or the Temic manufacturer generally does everything in RPM, which is nice, engine RPM. However, when you go to the Bosch side of things, so for like the later DQ500s and then the ZF8s, it turns into wheel speed based, and then some are output shaft speed based from transmission. So there's no one answer to that. It's whatever the software throws at us. We have to work within those.
It's not just one thing or the other. There's a
wish,
whole myriad of maps.
I would love for it to all be engine RPM based. If we could tune everything in that'd be great. But we have to deal with what the OEM uses.
And that would be kind of really old fashioned, anyways. I mean, even old school transmissions like from the 80s use more than just that. I mean, there's load and other.
Oh, well, okay.
Other
So
factors.
here, there's a lot of other factors, but for the actual shift point, the engine RPM shift point,
the final shift point.
the old stuff, the old like Tiptronic was all axle RPM. And then the later stuff turned into engine speed, and then went back to axle. It just depends on the OEM.
Someone's asking about our super duper throttle body ETA. It was delayed slightly because of some improvements and changes we made to the mold after we received our first casting sample. But I don't know. I mean, it's probably going to be like March when we release it.
To have inventory here
ready to go, packed, ready to ship.
Yeah, we've already done all our test fits. It's running on my car currently with the aluminum piece. So it's just a couple of tweaks to the casting, and I think we're good to go.
I think, as always, it'll be worth the wait. It's not that much longer, and we will get it to market as soon as we can. We do at times delay things because we want to always release the best product possible.
Yep.
And we actually talk about. You guys actually know we're working on this stuff. A lot of companies don't say anything about their new products until they're released, which is kind of how we used to be before we started doing these live chats, and we're happy to be open with you guys.
With that a couple of times, we used to talk a lot more, on various forums and things.
It's just tough. You get
stuff
burned.
we're working on, but you get burned. You say, "Hey, we're working on this," and then there's this expectation that it's going to be done soon. And then people get angry at you that it's not done soon.
I remember back in like the 2000s. Remember we committed to working on a tubular lower control arm for like the early small chassis Audis, like the 4000 Quattros and stuff. And we made the mistake of showing some early prototypes and samples and some of the stuff we were working on. And it created like the worst dynamic with the customer base. And like we were getting bashed and trashed on Audi World.
For not having a product.
For not releasing it.
That we never took anybody's money for. That we didn't do anything other than talk about us.
It turned into like such a fiasco. And we were just like, we're never saying anything about anything ever again. What are you supposed to do? Release a product before it's finished or before it's been tested or engineered? So, thank you for your patience. You guys are respectfully asking, and I'm not equating those two things.
No.
So
And we do not take like pre-orders for products that don't exist yet or haven't been tested or haven't been flushed out. So it's
Yeah. Why do you guys not recommend O2 spacers on the test pipe file for the 3.0T?
there's no need for them, and they can introduce unknown amounts of delay in the sensor readings. We do not alter the sensor reading, response performance expectations in the software.
I would just ask, why would anyone want to?
Exactly. There's no
What's the purpose?
there's no purpose other than making it less accurate.
It just makes your car like heavier.
Yeah, and it's added weight. But no, we do not want those in there. There's no reason for them. The software should account for how the car is set up. So
Yeah, no. If anyone would like to respond with why they think it would help, maybe there's something we don't know, but I don't understand. Do you have plans for a EA 888.3 intake manifold
or be like the
port
MQ8
fueling?
Mark 7?
Yeah.
Port fueling, yes. You don't need to change manifold for that. The stock manifold, we haven't really had any reason.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a real good reason. It's possible you can make a little bit more power with an aftermarket unit, but this kind of used to be a bigger thing with the older motors, like the 1ATs and 2.7s and i5. The older i5 stuff is you just didn't have that many avenues for power, and so you had to kind of really max out every little opportunity. But on these MQB cars, they're so good. Even the stock parts are really good. And unless you're really pushing, you're trying to make 600-700 horsepower with one or something, there's not a big need for it. So it's probably not something we would dedicate a lot of engineering time to.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of our customers are looking for stage 1, 2, maybe stage 3 upgrades. And the stock manifold's fine for that. It's not like it cracks or blows up or anything like that.
Yeah, there's no fundamental flaw to that manifold that we're trying to overcome right now.
And I think maybe an optimized aftermarket unit could maybe get you another 10.
There's some guys that have had problems with like some tumbler flaps and some things like that, but that's still really small.
But you can
percentage.
even
And
delete that stuff.
Most of those were handled under warranty because it was, my knowledge, that was just a bad era.
There was, yeah. It's not as much of a
swapped out pretty early, but it's not something we run into all the time here by any means.
Would you guys consider bringing back your RS4 exhaust manifold and full exhaust? I really don't think so, guys. That was
another era.
That was a tough era. Well, for one thing, the exhaust manifolds we discontinued because nobody was buying them. So I paid Wagner to do a final run of Sport Quattro exhaust manifolds, and I paid him $30,000 to make X number of manifolds. And it took so long to sell those. And towards the end, I was like personally emailing people in the Audi community, like, do you want to buy these things? They're just taking up space here.
Yep.
And we ended up discounting them and practically, giving them away. And so after that, I was like, these manifolds should go on the shelf. They're on our website. We maybe mention them every once in a while on social media, and they just sell. We just sell a couple a week because people want them. That's how a good product will perform.
Yeah.
And so we had to discontinue them just because financially it just makes sense. I mean, I can't just buy one manifold from Wagner, so we have to spend large amounts of money with them, and now we're leveraged financially, and that's money that we need in the business. Money is one of the most important tools any business has to operate. Now the exhausts are a whole nother story. Those were a nightmare to make. There were never-ending fitment
these are all
quality issues.
These are all handmade,
one at a time.
There was no when that was initially done. There was no preformed mandrel bent sections. It was literally, individual mandrel bends that we were cutting and setting up by hand in a fixture, but it was still prone for issues with that long of an exhaust section.
Yeah, and the other issue was that we didn't sell that many.
Right.
We were selling like 20 a year to keep this whole fabrication department going with, every welding station has a $5,000 TIG welder and all these consumables. So, the other issue is nobody else makes them either, right? So it's not like there's some thriving market for these products. Everyone has stopped making these products, including us. And a lot of these manifolds and stuff, they get ripped off and they're knocked off on eBay. eBay's filled with manifolds that Nate and I personally engineered,
Yeah.
you know, and they just get knocked off in China. And you go make them, we make them from D5S, and which is the same material that Audi uses for their exhaust manifolds. And these manifolds are $1,000 each to sell, but someone in China knocks it off in gray iron, which is good for making, like, I don't know. There's not many things like, I don't even think cast iron pans can be made from gray iron.
Yeah.
And then they sell them on eBay for $80 shipped. And then the customers kind of equate that they're both the same. Like, oh, why is that one so expensive? So anyways, yeah, I'm sorry, but I don't think so, because it's just that market's the demand just isn't there. I think, like we talked about last week.
Yeah, we went into this a lot last week.
The demand, we make what customers want. That's what any business should do. And if customers don't want it, you can't make it anymore. And a few customers does not a market make, unfortunately. So thanks for understanding. I like making that
I think
stuff.
we need to clarify. We make what the market wants. If we could make everything that every customer wanted, that'd be great. But there needs to be a market for us to actually.
That's why I said, one customer, a market does not make. The customers have to be a market. It has to be a certain amount to justify the activities. What are your thoughts on headers versus test pipes for the BS4? We talked about this a few months back. We haven't seen the benefits. The world record cars are running test pipes. They look cool. I honestly don't. We would have made one if we thought there was a big benefit. So, I would spend my money elsewhere if I were you. But I don't think they really hurt anything.
I haven't seen them actually impacted as long as they're constructed well. There's so many knockoffs out there these days. You got to kind of go over it with a fine tooth comb and make sure.
There are
they're-
knockoffs, but
I think it's one of those things that, like, if it's a knockoff and it's it might be cheap up front, but the amount of time to get it in there and get it installed and deal with it if there's an issue and a weld cracks or something like that, you gotta.
But to be fair, I don't know how much thought was put into the original.
Not saying there wasn't.
I think it was a cool looking header that was made to fit in the space, but I don't think any real engineering was done. I think if you actually spent the time and R&D and designed a header that had correct pulse propagation through, and the collector was designed properly to create an excavating pulse pressure.
And keep in mind, this is somehow on a supercharged motor, which is kind of not going to respond anywhere near the same as a normally aspirated motor with that regard. So it's.
But there could be maybe another 10 or 20 horsepower there in a super optimized design. But the factory stuff's good. The cats are somewhat restrictive, but they're not even that bad.
Good. They're not.
Yeah.
The only problem is
they melt.
The lifespan.
Yeah. So there's not a big gain there. So and I don't think those headers are cheap, and they're also a pain. You have to pretty much drop.
Install's the biggest problem.
You got to drop the whole motor out. So for almost nothing, I would stay away from it. Especially if you haven't maxed out all the other obvious opportunities like Stage 2 Plus, E40, etc. Any updates on CREC?
So this is the late 3-liter motors with
the A6
magnetically coupled supercharger. Yes, I'm hoping to have some more testing later this month, but don't wait until it's testing, not anything released. So.
And what about the features? Will it have similar features?
Yeah, it'll have very similar features to what we have now for everything else that are in the A6, A7 lineup. So,
Yep. By the way, this past week we released our new mugs, which we've been using. We even have, we're big proponents of data.
Yes.
And so we have even published a data chart about the performance of this mug. We take that very seriously. And then these are our new 034 logo shirts. I believe we have them for women as well. And our very own Allison modeled them for us. They use a good quality shirt, and they're very comfortable. And we did a nice outline around the logo, so it pops more. These are in stock, ready to ship. We also released, if you haven't seen our coasters and our wheel valve stem caps, just some fun stuff.
Yep.
Nothing crazy. We try to price that stuff pretty low because we're not really trying to make a lot of money off our swag and promotional type products. They're just for fun, so we just like to try to pay for them. But I hear they make great gifts for birthdays,
Yes.
bar mitzvahs, college graduations, Tuesdays celebrating like that. It's a Tuesday. You're still alive. Here's a 034 mug.
Right.
Yeah. Is 100,000 miles too much to build? Stage 2 plus, pulleys, tune, etc. I would say absolutely not.
No, it's one of those things. We've talked about this before too. It's just making sure all of your components are, up to the factory level of performance already.
Yeah.
Before you start piling in a bunch of other, new demand on things. Is your fuel pump working? Is your, is your intercooler up to snuff? Do you have any leaks here or there? Do you have? Is everything healthy? That's the
Has everything been maintained?
if it's all healthy, well maintained, and in top order, no problem at all.
Yeah, and keep in mind, mileage is a loose correlation to health.
Engine health, yeah.
So if someone took a car and they drove 100,000 miles driving on I-80 between San Francisco and New York, that's going to be a pretty healthy car as long as it's had its basic maintenance. Now, another car driving 100,000 miles on the Rubicon Trail, that car would probably not even be a car anymore. It'd probably be just like dust. So mileage itself, stop and go, the types of weather, the temperatures, but by far the biggest issue, you could destroy a car in 10,000 miles if it doesn't have the right oil or right amount of fluids in it. If you drain all the coolant out of a car, you won't even make it a mile. So that's an extreme example to say that if you haven't changed your coolant in the right intervals, then that coolant system now becomes corrosive.
Yeah.
That will have an impact on your intercoolers, and that means that at 60,000 miles, your intercooler could fail. Now, a well-maintained car with 120,000 miles won't have those corrosion issues, or the oil has to be changed, the proper intervals. If you don't change it, its viscosity changes, and then it no longer lubricates or protects the inside of the motor. So you start getting wear on your bearings, or your rings start wearing excessively. So by far the most important thing is good maintenance. If you have good maintenance, mileage really kind of won't matter. Certainly not to the degree that it would cause a concern. You could tune a 200,000 mile car if it's been well maintained.
Yeah, and this is it's so hard to give an answer on that, because there's you can think a car's perfectly maintained, but if you're not the original owner, you also don't know what happened before,
And you
even if it
almost
was
never know.
all dealer maintained. I mean, we stuff like the 3-liter motor had chronic thermostat issues when they were released, and a lot of them were replaced under warranty, and that's not necessarily a maintenance thing, but you don't know if that was driven then that with an overheating engine and they had shut it down late or something like that. So it's tough knowing, if you don't have the full history of the car, but mileage is not a determining factor to know the engine's full health, basically, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So, whoever asked that question, I would say either yourself or have a mechanic go through the car. And then again, we offer this service where before you actually flash your car, but after you buy the file, we will send you our logger, and we can do some logs as well. Now, our logger is not going to be able to tell if your coolant system has corrosion issues or not, but we can generally see that is the ECU compensating for some deficiency or problem, and should you be careful? So just shoot us an email, and we can go from there.
Yep.
Someone's asking, have you guys evaluated the difference between your heat exchanger and the Merc Racing heat exchanger? I'll be in the market for one soon, and there's obviously a price difference, not sure why. Well, I'll carefully answer this, that we like Merc Racing. We don't have any issues with Merc Racing. They support our products, and we really appreciate that. And we support them too.
Yep.
A lot of our customers are running their intercooler. We have never tested one here. We don't have any reason to believe that there's a problem with it or anything like that. It seems to be a good quality unit. I haven't heard of a lot of issues or complaints with it. The difference in price is explained by the difference in construction and materials. So our intercooler uses billet end tanks, and those end tanks are configurable to change, how coolant flows through it. We offer a complete set of brackets, including shrouds, to really seal the airflow area in front of the intercooler, so that all the air that comes in to the front fascia is forced through the core.
We do use a very high quality core.
Yes,
Yeah.
a very high quality core. Not saying that the Merc Racing one isn't.
I don't know what they have in there, but it is. We do not use a cheap core.
Yeah.
Means.
So, the cost of our kit is not the same as the other options on the market.
We're not pricing it just to make it expensive. It costs
No.
us a lot of money.
So I think if you pull both up and put them side by side, you'll be able to see some of the differences in construction and quality. Again, as far as I know, the Merc Racing unit is a good functional unit that a lot of people use. So you can make your choice from there. But we haven't evaluated really.
Yeah, it's not like we
anyone
sit here with
else's.
everybody's products and back to back to back.
Like we don't have data logs from
And
the
then-
two different cars to show that there's a difference. But again, check it out and make your own choice. We're happy to offer our kit for the customers that want that level of quality. When you pop the hood and you can see the billet and the really good quality, that's the customer we're going for. So let's see, B8 high pressure fuel pump updates. Yes, we are testing several different parts and products that we will be bringing to market in the future. So nothing more to say other than that it is testing, and so far so good. B8 2.0T intake updates, that is currently in engineering design, and we have some 3D printed prototypes that we're test fitting, and we will be flowing as well. We're very excited about this. After kind of evaluating everything else on the market in this particular case, we don't always do that. We don't always go out and look at what the rest of the market is doing, but we're so late to the game on this.
With an old market like this, you kind of have
Yeah.
to see just to make sure you're not.
And I think
you've got somewhere to go.
Yeah, a lot of what we see on the market keeps the MAF in kind of the stock position, which is not very optimal, and so it results in a really sharp 90 going down into the turbo. So we actually kind of thought outside the box, and we actually moved the MAF to a different location to allow a much better, more direct airflow path that keeps the air straighter. So we believe it'll be a very high performing intake, and it'll be a very reasonable price, similar to our B8 intake. Unfortunately, there's a MAF in there, which really
It
sucks.
definitely complicates it compared to.
And I think-
we're a little spoiled with the newer stuff.
But I think we'll be certainly trying to get past that with some of our tuning options, in which we'll offer a different hose. But I don't know when it's going to be ready for market, but hopefully in the spring we'll release it. Let's see. What do you recommend so I can increase my blower in my B8?
That's again, we talked about this before. That upgrading the supercharger on these 3 liters is not an easy task. There's not.
And
I'd point you towards.
It's been done, and those cars don't perform nearly as good as our Stage 2 Plus files. So who knows if we got our hands on one of those Stage 3 magnets in it? But it's so expensive.
Yeah,
And
there's not that many out there.
There's very few out there, and I don't think there's a lot of people that want to spend 10 grand, to get an extra few horsepower. So, there was one question that got deleted.
Oh, I think we went through one.
I was going to answer it, but
Let me just go backwards here. There was one that was like stage 1. What do I need to upgrade?
oh yeah, that one. Someone was asking, what do I need to upgrade before I do stage 1? Honestly, I don't think anything.
It's again just comes back to maintenance and making sure the engine's in good shape.
Make sure it's well maintained, but in my experience, you put stage 1 on any car, and you're just like, this is how the car should have came. It's not enough to overcome the stock safety or brakes or suspension, but it's the kind of, I think that's why stage 1 flashes are so popular, because You can just take a stock car, and if you only do that, there's really no downside.
It's
There's no
the
compromise.
biggest.
Biggest bang.
It's usually the biggest difference you're going to feel
Yeah.
for any software is going
Yeah.
just from stock to that stage
Right.
one, and then everything else beyond that is going to be incremental from there. But I mean, yeah, for a simple A/B test, that's going to be your biggest bang for the buck.
What is the mileage number to be at before I consider carbon cleaning my 2016 SQ5 3.0?
The 3 liters are not that bad.
Not as
typically.
bad.
They're-
But I would
I've
say,
seen-
like-
I've seen some that have been pretty cruded up.
Say like every 50, 60,000
At
miles.
least take a look at it. Yeah.
Take a look, you know. I mean, the Superchargers comes off pretty easy, right?
Yeah, it's
as a unit.
I mean, it looks very daunting, but you know, it's,
Like in an
it's,
hour,
it's
you can
really
have the
not
whole
that bad.
thing
You drink some coolant, easily in an hour you can pop that up,
Yeah.
and in your garage, it's not.
Or a
really
shop can do
special
it. You know,
tools.
next time you have your car into a shop, or we'd be happy to do it here if you're local. But yeah, the worst I think is the B8 RS5 is by far
The V8's by far.
yeah, that and R8s are bad, and RS4s.
Yep. Those high rev V8s are
The B7 RS4
Are,
was I think the B7 RS4 is the worst.
Yep.
That was a heyday when those were really popular. We were doing like 2-3 of those a week, and the techs would build these like statues and art projects out of the
snowmen,
carbon.
crap that came out of there.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, that was literally every like 25,000 you had to do them.
Yeah.
It was like 2.5 oil changes.
Oh, and we do before and after
Yeah,
dyno.
30 wheel difference, which
It
is a
would be
lot
30
on that motor.
like
It's not like they were the
40
highest
crank
output.
horsepower. Yeah. Can you real quick? Can you explain how to read PDT underscore MES and IGA underscore
Yeah, so these are-
AVMV?
These are two variables that we log with the 3 liter. The PDT underscore MES is basically pressure downstream of throttle as measured. So that's going to be after your throttle body, before the supercharger. We log that so that we can see any major restrictions on the your intake side. So if you've got like a filter that's collapsing, or an intake tube that's sucking shot, or a stock intake, we can see that pretty quickly in the logs if that's what's kind of impacting performance. Because you'll see that number drop pretty significantly, and that's basically what your supercharger is breathing in. So that's why we use that number. The second variable this guy is asking about is IGA underscore AV underscore measure value. That's the ignition angle, actual value, the mean value. So that's your averaged ignition angle across all your cylinders, basically, is how to think of that. So those are the two we use, and those are just, again, part of our data collection when we're doing logs for diagnosis on these cars.
Yeah. Can you guys add an option for TPMS on ZTF wheels? It's a hassle to get them elsewhere. Mark?
Yeah, Mark, let's add that to your list.
That's the first time I've had anyone ask.
I don't know that we've ever been asked about adding TPMS.
I don't think so.
as
I mean,
an optional.
do a lot of the cars even have the sensors in it?
Not a lot. No, a lot of them are wheel speed still, but
Which
there
ones
are
have it?
models that have it. The bigger cars, I think, have it. The late TTRS does. Early ones.
The
do not.
8S?
Late 8S. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think some are free as well.
Yep. It was it depended
most-
on the package. I
most
think
are off of the
I think
ABS sensors, right?
If you had the ceramic brakes, I think it might have come with that.
But a lot of them are still wheel speed.
Most of them are still wheel speed. Yep. So maybe we can add it as an option. I haven't looked into those to know if they're the same across multiple platforms to the point where we could do one simple option, or if we have to kind of specialize that out.
I was asking, why do you not offer program switchability, for example, different octanes, without reflashing?
Because it takes 30 to 60 seconds to reflash the calibration area for a map change. So it's one of those things where we could put a lot more engineering effort into the map switching for every one of these platforms and ECUs, or spend the time developing the actual calibration right now with the resources we have. So yeah, there's always a trade-off. Where do you want to put your engineering? You right there?
I was just laughing at this AMD is the best guy.
That guy? Oh, yeah.
Guy's obsessed with B5s.
Yeah, that was an old one.
Oh, okay.
That guy.
That's kind of like the kid that says, I like turtles every chance he gets.
How do you feel about this world of,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I can't remember the last time anyone asked us about program switching. So, like Nate said, it would be a certain amount of engineering efforts, and we've decided to put that towards new features.
There's no technical reason we cannot on most of these ECUs. It's just it's not worth the development time. those.
All right, last question before we're out of time. On the S4 B8, whose DSG is known to have a higher rate of problems versus the B8.5? Does running current future tunes affect this in any way? And are there any preventative actions that can be performed?
So I have had people talk about DSG problems. I have 100,000 miles on my 2011 DSG that is bone stock and has never hiccuped or had an issue yet. I do regular DSG services on it as needed. I think I try and hit around every 30,000 miles or so. And that's it. I mean, if it's in good shape, and I'm not saying there aren't questionable units out there or some potential hardware issues out there, but I think good DSG services are key. That's fluids, filters. Make sure your clutch packs are adapted and not slipping all the time. When you tune with us, we will generally make sure you are on the latest OEM release of TCU software. So that is a good preventative measure. There are usually some improved control systems and whatnot in those OEM updates. So yeah, I mean, if anything, the tune can actually help a lot of that if you're on a version that was questionable. So yeah, no, we haven't seen any chronic issues across the board on B8 stuff by any means.
Yeah, no, it's a reliable transmission. I very rarely see any actual problems or issues. Now, as far as tuning goes, make sure you're running a good tune. There are tuners that claim that you need to upgrade your clutch packs when your clutches start slipping because the programming's bad. So
Yeah. And
with our tuning, absolutely nothing needs to be done.
Yeah, we have not had any reason to date to update any clutch packs or hardware within those yet. So
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us yet again. What was this, 36?
36.
36, wow. This show will be almost as old as I am soon. So cheers, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining us.